So guys, I think DAZN did a list of their best fighters in the last 30 years. And they put Manny Pacquiao as their best fighter in the last 30 years over Floyd Mayweather. And as you can imagine, that caused a bit of a stir. Amongst the fans. A lot of the fans seem to think, oh, disgraceful. How's it? You know, some of the Floyd fans, of course. It's a very difficult one because Floyd, for me, beat Manny Pacquiao. But Manny Pacquiao, for me, had a lot of impressive wins, man. And he was sensational. You know, there was other fighters on there. Mike Tyson. I believe Mike Tyson was on there. You know, De La Hoya was on there. I believe De La Hoya was on there. Lennox was on there, who's a great fighter. Was it Pernell? I think Pernell Whitaker was on there. There were some great fighters on there, man. You know, Roy Jones, I believe, was on there. You know, there was some really, Bernard Hopkins, I think I've already mentioned him. You know, some great fighters, great fighters on there. And to be honest with you, when I went down those names and looked at them, I thought, wow, look at some of the names on there. Some great fighters, man. Great fighters on that list. And you could make a case for I definitely think that in the last 30 years, I think when you look at what Pacquiao and Floyd did, they both transcended the sport in the sense that they were both brilliant. They were both really good. Both really good fighters. I think Floyd was the better boxer out of the two. I think Manny was just a beast. You know, I think Floyd had better boxing IQ than Manny. You know, I think he was a lot more smarter in the ring. He was more smart. He knew how to box, move, and you know, to get away. Very tricky defense. As my granddad says about Mayweather, he's a defensor. He's a defensor. He goes, you know, even my granddad said he don't come to fight, man. He's a defensor. He's a defensor, very smart. That's what my granddad says about Mayweather. My granddad's not even, like, he's seen a couple of his fights, Mayweather's. But he don't want, you know, my granddad loves Pacquiao. He loves Pacquiao. He goes, Pacquiao, man, what a fighter. Because Pacquiao's that type of guy where everyone is impressed by him because he's a small guy and he's so fast and he's a fighter. He's a proper fighter, you know. And people like my granddad, like people that are like, you know, they like fights. They like to see a war, and Pacquiao gives you that. And Pacquiao gives you that excitement, whereas Mayweather's, he's more for the sweet science, you know, more for the guys that, you know, like that, you know, watching a guy that likes to break you down, work you out, you know, smart, tricky defense, shoulder roll, and all of that, which is appreciated by, you know, the guys that, you know, that are hardcores, you know, the guys that you call the pugilists. Like Mayweather was great, but in terms of fan-friendly fighter, Pacquiao was far more fan-friendly. But I don't know how, like, when you talk about Pacquiao was the greatest fighter of the last 30 years, it depends on how you're ranking it. It depends. There's many things that make people great. Like, recently there's been a debate about Ronaldo and Messi, right? Who's greater out of those two? You know, like, for me, I've always said Messi, and some people will say Ronaldo. For me, it's not a debate, and the reason why it's never been a debate with Messi and Ronaldo is the fact that, for me, Messi does things on a football field that sometimes you're left gobsmacked. And Ronaldo, although he's great and he's got great stats and he's just as effective for the team, I don't believe he's as naturally as gifted as Messi. Pacquiao Mayweather's different because I think Mayweather is the better boxer. He's the more complete boxer. However, Pacquiao's more exciting. Pacquiao's taken a lot more risks. Pacquiao has fought guys that are way bigger than him. You know, so, and Pacquiao's beaten them up. He in his prime, he was destroying guys. So when you consider all of that, you know, Manny Pacquiao he's an icon. Let's be honest, he's special. So I have no problem with him ranking him number one. You know, if they put Floyd number one, I have no problem with that. I think they were both on par in terms of what I think Manny Pacquiao, for me, achieved see Manny Pacquiao. People say that Manny Pacquiao is greater than Floyd, but Floyd is a better boxer. I'd kind of agree with that. I think Manny Pacquiao definitely had more more accomplishments in the sense that, he took a lot more risks. He jumped up more weight classes. He was a smaller guy. Pound for pound, obviously he was a smaller guy than Mayweather, and he jumped up and won a lot more titles in different weight classes. Didn't really duck anyone, and something that a lot of people, say about Floyd is that, some people say he ducked Paul Williams, Margarito, Amir Khan, Keith. People bring up names that they think he should have fought, and they wanted to see him fight, and he didn't fight them. When people thought he could have fought them. So some people say he ducked Costa Tzu as well. I think he would have taken Costa Tzu apart, by the way, and I think he would have beaten Margarito as well. Paul Williams would have been a problem. Paul Williams would have been a hard fight, and I don't think the Khan fight would have been easy. I know a lot of people will probably disagree with me. I don't think that would have been an easy fight for him either, and that's why I don't think that's why I don't think he took that fight. I think he knew that it was a tough fight, just like the Paul Williams fight. I think those two would have been really, really tough for Mayweather. Would have been good fights, intriguing fights. Fortunately, it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. Coming back to Pacquiao Mayweather, I definitely think those two have been the standout fighters in the last 30 years. I don't see other fighters. There's been some other great fighters, fighters I mentioned, but I don't think there's been any fighters that have been as accomplished and the longevity as well. That Mayweather and Pacquiao had a long career. Let's not forget, these guys went on for like 2 decades, man. They've had a long career. So for me, I think that needs to be appreciated. The fact that these guys have gone on for so long, the longevity. And I know Mayweather retired ages ago, like when he fought Berto, which was 6 years ago. But even then, when Mayweather retired, he was 37, 38. That's old, man. Especially when Mayweather was a guy that, he was in the sport for a very long time. And we know that he had hand issues as well. So, Mayweather definitely, great career, man. Great career. Pacquiao, Mayweather, great careers, man. It's sad that the fans love to compare and contrast and try to make out who's greater and who's better, and rather than giving either of them, or rather than, Floyd's fans will look to put Manny down, Manny's fans will look to put Floyd down, but instead of appreciating both, that we got to witness both of them. And it was great watching both, to be honest. It depends on what you like, But like I said, they were both great, man. And I think when Manny finally hangs him up and Mayweather is gone as well, I think we'll realize, because I don't think anyone will fill their void. I don't think there was many fighters, and there are fighters like Canelo, Joshua. I don't think, Joshua's name-wise, he's big, but in terms of fighter, he's not in the class of Mayweather and Pacquiao and even Canelo for that matter. But I think these two had a different kind of appeal. They were, Pacquiao he sold himself, just because, people loved him and people wanted to watch him. Mayweather was like a villain, where Mayweather kind of got everyone sucked into watching his fights, and a lot of the times, a lot of his fights were more entertaining, prior to the fight, the press conferences and stuff, than actually in the ring, because Mayweather was so good, he used to just outclass guys. A lot of people didn't like his style, but personally, I think both of them deserve a lot of respect. Both of them had great careers. Pacquiao, is one of my favorite fighters of all time. I believe one of the greatest fighters of all time, alongside Mayweather, who was another one of the greatest fighters of all time. So, to be honest, I think both of them deserve a lot more credit than they probably. I definitely think they both get credit. I think they're both respected. I think Mayweather probably gets a little bit more hate, but that's understandable. The way he, the way sometimes, the way he, conducts himself. But Mayweather's a legend, man. Mayweather's a legend. I've always stood by that. Like, I don't care what anybody says. For me, he's a legend, and Pacquiao's a legend as well. They're legends, man. Both great fighters, both did great. Both definitely transcended the sport in their own ways, without question. I think Pacquiao's story is inspiring. But then having said that, Mayweather's story is inspiring as well. You know, how he got beat in the Olympics when the fight that actually he really won. But then he came back and he never lost a pro fight after that. You know, it's very inspiring stories, man, when you go and look some of these greats that have come along. So fair play to Mayweather, fair play to Pacquiao, great careers. But what do you guys think? Who do you think was the best fighter in the last 30 years? Was it Manny Pacquiao? Was it Floyd Mayweather? Who was it? Leave your thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think. And guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.